Don't be ashamed of your effort. Midwits hate earnestness and sincere conviction because they can't stand being reminded of the thing they're capable of but resist actually trying. And Mark Manson's got a quote that's similar that says, people will try to put the same limitations on you that they put on themselves. Don't mistake their insecurities for your ceiling. And I think, especially on the internet, especially if you're British, you will know this very well, there is something kind of uncool about being too keen, about being too sort of excitable. It's not exactly in our country's DNA to be super excitable, and being accused of being a kino is not something that many people want, but it really does derogate you, the one thing that you should do, which is effort and paying attention and trying. And that seems to kind of exist on the internet at the moment. A lot of people refusing to go out, a lot of people refusing to try things, the system's rigged against me, etc. And I don't know, man, like, how's that working out for you? Maybe it's working out great or whatever, but if you don't feel like that message speaks to you, and you are someone that wants to try and make things happen in the world, when you brush up against that kind of energy, it really should be a reflex to just sort of disregard it, kind of the same way as you disregard somebody that's speaking a different language. And you think, oh, well, they're just speaking a different way to me, so that must be fine for them, and I'm sure that works for them, but I kind of don't need that over here. And as far as I can see, sort of motivation and willpower and drive are so rare and fucking tenuous and on a knife edge that you should be very, very careful about how much you allow that to be insulted by stuff from the outer world. And Mark Manson's thing, people will try to put the same limitations on you that they put on themselves. Don't mistake their insecurities for your ceiling, is lovely. Something else that I've seen, which is happened to a bunch of people around me recently, is a very real sign of success. How you can know when you've fully made it, which is people start to accuse you of having wealthy parents. That the real sign of success is when someone says, I bet you had wealthy parents. And I've kind of wondered where this, that's satirical for the people on Instagram that didn't get that was satirical. I wasn't saying that it was an actual marker of success. I was saying that it is the sort of thing that appears to come along for the ride as a side order when you achieve something that some people would say of as being success. And I've tried to work out where this motivation comes from. I wonder whether it's that if somebody has achieved something that other people are envious of or would desire in one way or another, and if they're not that different than they were, the reason that the other person observing them hasn't achieved the same thing is put more on them. It's more to do with their efforts, their agency, the way that they've shown up in life. But if it's because of an unfair head start that person had because they had wealthy parents, you don't need to do the same level of self-reflection to work out why you're not necessarily in the same place. Another lesson from Tim Ferriss this year. Wow, that Stray Vista video wall shoot thing that we did in March around about Easter time was fucking fire. And he had this great insight, which was don't aim for mediocre. 99% of people in the world are convinced that they're incapable of achieving great things, so they aim for the mediocre. The level of competition is thus fiercest for realistic goals, paradoxically making them the most time and energy consuming. If you are insecure, guess what? The rest of the world is too. Do not overestimate the competition and underestimate yourself. You are better than you think. I love that. Do not overestimate the competition and underestimate yourself. Think if you're the sort of person who is regularly surprised by how well things go, that's maybe a good indication that could be about you. And basically, I think I'm certain that most capable people don't believe in themselves enough. And a lack of confidence killed more dreams than a lack of competence ever did. Self-doubt often seems to sort of be bundled into a package deal alongside potential. And I'm not too sure why. It might be that capable people are paralyzed by high expectations, or that competence is correlated somehow with rumination and an introspective mind. or maybe the greater your capacity, the less accurately you can see your true potential. And as the end goal is simply much further away, it's harder for you to work out. I'm unsure on the cause, but I'm pretty certain on the symptom. More people are held back by their self-belief than are propelled by it. You can kind of think of confidence as a speed limiter that's on your system. You have capacity for more, but your self-doubt limits your ability to chase it. And it causes you to avoid taking risks, which means that you move more slowly than your competition. And it encourages you to criticize your performance, even when you do well, which derogates your motivation. And it makes you compare yourself to other people's achievements, making you feel inferior by comparison. Basically, your mind is not helping you here. Placing insatiable demands on your performance doesn't drive more. It doesn't help you to get there. It just makes you despondent at never feeling satisfied, even with a job well done. And George Mack, who has been on the show 8 times, I think, maybe more, he said, "There is a guy out there with half your talent but 10 times your self-belief making 5 times the money." There is a guy out there with half your talent but 10 times your self-belief making 5 times the money. And it's so true. People that just swing for the fences. And I don't mean to stick a middle finger up or castigate the self-doubting, competent person that sort of quietly cracks on in the corner. This is really me trying to give a bit of hope that, again, if you are regularly surprised by how well things go, something's up, right? You're not seeing your capacity in the world accurately. What if things were going to go better than you assumed? What if things weren't always going to be a catastrophe? What if you didn't need to grip and concern and worry and cloy and be desperate and needy? What if you didn't need to do that? What if it was going to go well because you're talented and fundamentally the world ends up giving people what they deserve over a long enough time horizon? The insecure overachiever mindset. When faced with a challenge, your nature might be to worry and obsess and grip tightly, the sort of classic insecure overachiever mindset. And because worrying is so common in every pursuit that you attempt, your successes are seen as proof that worrying is a performance enhancer, and your failures are seen as proof that you should have worried all along. So you end up with unfalsifiable negativity, kind of a walking anxiety disorder harness for productivity, like Andrew Williamson says. You build this link between worry and performance. Belief that your performance would have been markedly worse if you hadn't worried so much, and that the worrying is precisely what motivated and enabled the outcomes that you wanted. Even when you reach black belt status and you've got confidence in your capacities, there's a lack of enthused energy. I think it seems like maybe the worries left you, but it's not been replaced with excitable enthusiasm, just higher expectations. And I have been thinking about this an awful lot this year and kind of want to propose a radical new approach, which is assuming that things will actually go well. Basically, after a while, I don't think that the fear is aiding your performance. You're primarily running on habit and skill and experience, and maybe the fear was needed in the beginning to narrow your focus and create the obsession. But now you've reached escape velocity and you're drifting in space. So why are you holding the controls just as tightly as you were when you were on the launch pad instead of actually enjoying the view? And it's a realization that we all need to come to, that this is all going to be over pretty soon. And I need to remind myself to realize that this thing isn't going to last forever. This is one day you will do your final sports match or your final trip to give a presentation or a concluding project at work or whatever. And you can look back on a great run of miserable successes or actually try to embrace some enjoyment, perhaps even try to prioritize it. One thing that a lot of high achievers do, especially people that care a lot about their pursuit, is they confuse relentless, dour severity with seriousness and sophistication. I don't think it's more noble to treat your pursuits so sternly that the only positive element is the end result and absolutely none of the experience. TLDR, I think things will go well. You will figure it out just like you always have. So actually go and seek some joy. And this was a reflection, I guess I kind of realized when doing the live show in Australia and then the one in London, and realizing that everything had gone well and that the live shows, especially in Australia, were fantastic. And I'd been so focused on not messing up and on gripping the experience and on controlling everything that I didn't actually, when I look back, sure, we did it. The outcome was the outcome, which was really great. But there wasn't a massive amount of enjoyment during it because so much of it was swimming in this sea of concern and vigilance and, ambient anxiety. So I tried to split test it with London and see, okay, what happens if I just try and enjoy it? And it went even better. And I wasn't terrified every single moment. So maybe assuming that things aren't always going to go badly is a strategy that we can all use, basically. It's similar to this insight from Rich Roll, which is actually from 2023, but resurfaced, and I fucking love this quote. He said, "I still find myself with this sense that success has to be earned, and the only way to earn it is to inflict pain on yourself. And if you're not in pain, you didn't try hard enough. And it would have been better if you'd suffered more. And I think that's a lie, and I want to find out if it's a lie or if it's true." And I think that it's a lie as well. One of the most common questions that we got asked in Australia and in London at the live shows was, how do I give myself credit for my accomplishments in life? Why do I never feel satisfied or finished when the job has been well done? And this, as far as I can see, is another curse of competence. If you're good at things and have high standards, you assume that you should always do well, which means that success isn't a cause for celebration, but it's the minimum level of reasonable performance. Anything less than victory would be a failure, and victory itself becomes nothing more than acceptable. Congratulations, you might be very successful. You also might be very miserable. I shouldn't say congratulations, because that makes it sound as if you chose it, and you didn't. So a few things to keep in mind. And again, this is largely me screaming at myself to remember these. First off, you're wired this way for a reason, because your ancestors are made up of the most goal-driven, insecure overachievers from history. So you couldn't have been any other way. Your brain doesn't care about you feeling good. It only cares about you being successful. In the past, success meant accumulating food and resources, and now it means accumulating money and accomplishments. And the number of ways that your success-seeking system can be hijacked is greater than ever, so it's not really your fault. Another realization, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. This outrageous lesson from Thomas Sowell. You don't get to live the comfortable life with recognition and progress and all of the personal development that you really care about, and also be able to switch off from that stuff whenever you want. It's like you think that you could be obsessive and driven in one area of your life, but be able to create a hard boundary where it doesn't bleed over into everything else. That's just not the way that it works. Your brain doesn't know, oh, these are the pursuits that I'm supposed to really, really be obsessive about. But when it comes to my relationships, or when it comes to how I feel about my progress in the gym or whatever, I want you to leave that bit apart, compartmentalize it. It's like, no, this is a nature that you're building inside of yourself, or in many ways has been sort of bestowed on you genetically. You can't have these weird bits of territory where you want it over here, but you don't want it over there. So there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Okay, would you sacrifice all of the things that you care about yourself, your depth of thought, the development that you make, if it meant that you got to have a little bit more peace? For the most part, I don't think you would. So with that in mind, just accept it as the cost of doing business, that some stuff that you're not super happy about will maybe come along for the ride. Another one is you complain about not being grateful and you give yourself no time for gratitude. And I don't mean a daily journal which becomes a chore. I mean dwelling at the end of a successful experience for 60 seconds, like really sitting in it and considering the details and thinking about how good and satisfied you feel to have completed it. Rick Hansen, in this great book called Hardwiring Happiness, he says, absorb the experience. Imagine it sinking down into you and becoming a part of you. And that's the type of sort of micro habit thing. You give a presentation, you were nervous before, it goes well afterward. 60 seconds of just sitting and thinking about it. Like really allowing yourself to sort of revel in that, as opposed to, right, get my phone out, there's got to be emails to do, there must be some Slacks that I've got to answer. Or, you have a difficult conversation with a partner, and instead of immediately moving on to distraction or cuddling or whatever, it's like, hey, sit with that feeling. Wow, that was a scary conversation that we were supposed to have, and it went well, and both of us regulated. How phenomenal. Like, you can sit and allow that to become more of a part of you. And ultimately, you were born into a world that you didn't choose. You were maladapted for the mind that you have, which you also didn't choose. You're in an environment that's replete with games designed to hijack your drive and your attention 24 hours a day. So basically, I'm impressed that you even made it to breakfast. And we all need to give ourselves a little bit of a break, I think.